You'll never go back to buying English muffins once you've tried them homemade. The first time I bit into freshly toasted muffins made with my own 2 hands, I was literally shook. Never would I have thought that English muffins could be so good. Instead of being dry, dusty, and tasteless, homemade ones are so moist inside. The texture's almost creamy, yet they still toast up to be super crunchy with tons of nooks and crannies. There's a complex, subtly sweet flavor from slow and careful fermentation. This is the kind of Sunday morning bake that fills you up with the warmth of having made something simply perfect. Start off by combining 167 grams or 3/4 cup Greek yogurt with 325 mils of water. Both of these should be at room temperature. Too cold and it'll slow the yeast from growing and working its magic. The acidity in the yogurt will tenderize the dough, as well as adding a nice lactic tang to our finished muffins. Throw in 40 grams or 3 tablespoons of a neutral oil along with 3/4 teaspoons instant yeast. Use 1 teaspoon if you've got active dry yeast. Add in 560 grams or 4 cups all-purpose flour, followed by 10 grams or 1.5 teaspoons fine sea salt. I'm starting off by stirring to wet all of the flour, and then switching to hands to bring the dough together. We're not really kneading here, just need to work out all of the lumps of dry flour because they'll be hard to get rid of later on. Don't worry if the dough feels wet and sticky, that's by design. Instead of us kneading by hand, we'll let time do most of the work for us. As the dough sits, the presence of moisture will allow the proteins in the flour to unfurl and naturally link up into a strong gluten network. As the gluten develops, the dough will become less sticky. This proofing process will take 2.5 hours total at room temperature. During the first 90 minutes, we'll help the gluten development along by performing 3 sets of stretch and folds every half hour. Once the dough is combined, cover tightly and set a timer for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, time for the first set of stretch and folds. Using wet hands to prevent sticking, grab one side of the dough from against the bowl, gently pull up and fold over the top of the dough ball. Repeat this 4 times total, going all the way around the bowl, rotating 90 degrees each time. This maneuver stretches out and conditions the developing gluten network, helping to transform the dough from a shaggy mess into a smooth and supple texture. Repeat these stretch and folds 2 more times, waiting 30 minutes between each set of folds. Then, let the dough rest undisturbed for 1 more hour at room temperature. After 1 more hour, cover tightly and place in the fridge to cold proof for 10 hours minimum up to 48 hours. In the cold, the yeast will slow down and not produce as much gas, but will keep on growing and creating depth of flavor. The longer the dough sits, the better the muffins will taste. Alright, so it's the next day and I'm ready to finish the muffins. Let's prep a landing zone first for the dough balls. Scatter a generous layer of cornmeal on a half sheet tray. Don't skimp on the cornmeal here, it's vitally important to prevent sticking. All the extra cornmeal can be reused after the muffins are done. Now take the dough out of the fridge. From this point, we'll want to work quickly before the dough can warm up because cold dough is less sticky and will be easier to shape. Scoop the dough out of the bowl and form into a rough circle on the counter. Punch a hole in the middle with your finger, cut with a dough scraper, then roll into a nice log. Divide the dough into 12 equal portions. With slightly damp hands, take a piece of dough and gently pat it out. Flip it over and tuck everything towards the center and pinch together. Turn it over again and roll with a loosely cupped hand to create a smooth ball. If at any point things start getting sticky, I like to keep a wet towel handy and will re-wet my hands to prevent any further sticking. Transfer the dough to the cornmeal lined tray, giving each dough ball at least 2 inches of space on all sides to spread out and puff up. Repeat until all 12 portions of dough are shaped. Generously dust the tops of all the dough balls with more cornmeal. Cover tightly with plastic wrap and proof in a warm place until they're roughly doubled in size. This will take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. To check if the dough is perfectly risen, give it a gentle poke. The indentation should spring back about halfway. If it springs back all the way, then it needs a little more proofing time. If it doesn't spring back at all, then it may have proofed for a little bit too long. Preheat a 12-inch non-stick skillet over medium-low heat for 3 minutes. Some people like to use cast iron here, but I like a skillet because aluminum heats more evenly than cast iron, which can be prone to hot spots. Use 2 spatulas to gently pick up dough balls and transfer to the heated skillet. The cornmeal is our best friend here and will help prevent the spatulas, especially the bottom one, from sticking to the dough. Don't crowd the pan. The muffins will need space to expand and puff up. I like to cook 4 at a time in a 12-inch skillet. Once the dough hits the pan, give each a few firm smacks with a spatula. This will help flatten them out slightly and create that iconic shape of an English muffin. Cover with a lid to trap steam and help cook the insides of the muffins. Depending on how hot the stove is, the muffins will take about 6 minutes per side. After 2 to 3 minutes, gently use your hands or the spatulas to rotate the muffins around so that they cook more evenly. Take a peek every so often to check the progress. Cover again and continue cooking until the bottoms of all the muffins are evenly browned. Once they look brown enough, flip the muffins over and once again give them a few firm smacks. No need to cover with the lid now. Keep cooking with the lid off until the bottoms are nicely golden. On the second side, since the tops are now set, the muffins are less delicate and easier to manipulate. I just use my hands to rotate them and to check the bottoms, but be careful and don't burn yourself. You can always use the spatulas to move the muffins around. Keep the heat on medium-low or low the entire time so that the insides of the muffins have time to cook all the way through. Feel free to flip the muffins over to even out the color on the top and the bottom. Once the outsides are browned to your liking and the muffins have been in the pan for at least 12 minutes, the insides should be cooked perfectly. You can check for doneness with a thermometer. The interior temperature should be at least 200 Fahrenheit or 93 Celsius. Transfer the muffins to a cooling rack and move on to the next batch. Keep cooking until you've worked through all of the muffins. I know it's tempting, but let the muffins cool for at least 15 minutes before digging in. English muffins should never be sliced in half with a knife. To create all the signature nooks and crannies, take a fork and poke around the entire circumference of the muffin. Then pull apart the 2 halves. This will create an uneven, craggy surface that, once toasted, will get super crisp. Slather in a generous amount of butter and enjoy. With these English muffins, the possibilities are endless, but why don't we make the best ever from scratch sausage and egg breakfast sandwiches? Take some sausage out of its casing and shape into patties. Make the patties larger and thinner than desired because they will shrink once cooked. Sizzle the patties in a skillet until cooked all the way through and set aside. Then fry the eggs in the sausage fat. Use a ring if you've got it to get that perfect McMuffin vibe. Finally, toast split English muffins in the pan. Once the insides are toasted, remove the tops and flip over the bottoms and place over some cheese. Add a splash of water for steam and cover with the lid until the cheese is melted. Meanwhile, make a sauce by combining mayo and sriracha. Assemble the sandwiches. Then finally, dig into a perfect breakfast experience completely made with your own 2 hands. Breakfast truly doesn't get more satisfying than this.
Something that you buy, you buy English muffins. Who makes English muffins? Well, now I'm telling you that you should be making your own English muffins because the results are worth it.
As always, the full written recipe can be found in the description below. Thanks for joining me on Sheldow's Kitchen. If you like this video, I have more recipes on my channel, so please check that out if you'd like. I hope to see you again very soon.
Lots of stuff.